Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. Today I've put together 14 fall DIYs, a little compilation video of my past projects. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. Here is the Unique in the Creek wreath board that I've been using lately. And I got this ribbon from Lake County Treasures by the Smiths. They are just amazing. I loved this ribbon. So I have 3 rolls. And then they gave me a little bit extra just as a little thank you, which I thought was so cute. And of course, these are local Canadian suppliers, so always support the local Canadians. I also was going to use this felt from Amazon, but I didn't end up using it. But I am going to be using this styrofoam ball. I'm going to actually be cutting in half. I'll show you later. And of course, to put everything together, I'm going to use these cable ties. So again, thank you Unique in the Creek and thank you Lake County Treasures for these amazing products. I just love them. Here is our Unique in the Creek wreath board. So if you flip it over on the other side, you can see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And of course, the center 2 are just for your centerpiece. The outside we are not going to use, but we are going to start attaching those cable ties on the second row in those little holes there that are close together. All you're going to do is you're going to take your cable tie, feed it through one of the holes, and then feed it back through the other hole that's close together. Then we're going to clip it together, but we're not going to pull it all the way. You want to still have that little loop that we created there, but you do want to hear that clicking sound. And what you're wanting to do as well is we're going to do the shared holes. So we're going to go to the 2 holes that are close together plus the 2 holes that are furthest apart as well. So basically, in the end, every single hole will have a loop. Every single pair of holes will have a loop of your zip ties. And then now that I've got the shared holes done, I'm going to go back and do the holes that are close together again. And then I'm going to repeat that same process for the entire second row. So this is the second row of holes, but it's our first row that we're putting the cable ties in. And then it's always a good idea to flip it over and check and see I missed some right here. So I'm going to flip that over and then I'm going to put that cable tie in that opening so I make sure that I have all of my cable ties ready to go. And like I said before, flipping it over is an amazing idea just to see and to make sure. It's like double check your work, right? Flip it over, double check your work. And there we go. We have all of those cable ties in there. Now it's time to work on that third row here. And what we're going to do for the third row is we are just going to place the cable ties and we're going to skip the single hole, but we're going to place the cable ties in the holes close together. So again, you're feeding it through one hole and then you're feeding it back through the other. Let it hear a couple of clicks, and then we're going to skip that hole and we're going to move on to the next double hole until that entire row is done. Flipping over to check our work. We've got it all secured and all in there. Now it is time to move on to our 4th row and our 5th row eventually. For this one, we're going to do the same as the first row. So you're going to do the cable ties in the shared holes and in the close holes. So again, we're just feeding it through into the 2 close holes, hearing that click a couple of times, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Now for this one, I did the 2 shared holes and then I went back and I did I went to the 2 close holes and then I went back and I did the shared holes. And then of course, once I'm finished with doing all of that, I'm going to flip it over one more time just to make sure and just to see that I have all of my holes filled. And there you go. They are all filled. Now it's time to move on to that last row. And again, I'm going to do the exact same thing where I'm going to fill all the holes, the double holes and the shared holes with my cable ties. And then once we have this done, we are ready for our ribbon. Aren't you excited? I know I am. So here you go. I have all of my rows done. The first row is blank. The second row, we filled it all. The third row is just the little ones. The fourth and the fifth row, we have it all filled in. So now that our wreath board is done, how about we take some ribbon? And for this project, I have the 3 rolls that I showed you in the beginning of the 2.5-inch wired ribbon. And then this was just like a bonus 1.5-inch wire ribbon. And I am going to cut these all at 12 inches. So you can either use your rotary cutter or a pair of scissors. I just decided to use my rotary cutters. They were the closest. And I'm going to cut all of this ribbon at 12 inches. So again, that is all of your 2.5-inch ribbon and all of your 1.5-inch ribbon are all going to be cut at that 12-inch mark. Now, the amount of ribbons that I used, the 1.5-inch checkered ribbon was 16 pieces. The blue pumpkin ribbon that you just saw was 16 pieces as well. The checkered ribbon that's on the screen right now is 18 pieces. And my final and last ribbon, which is this brown burlap, I did 18 pieces of ribbon as well. So that is a total of 68 pieces of ribbon, if my math is correct. If my math is wrong, you can comment down below and correct me. But there you have it, 68 pieces in total, 12-inch lengths. So what I'm going to use for these close together holes is this 1.5-inch ribbon. And this is going in the second row, but that is our first row of cable ties. So I'm just going to find a spot right here, figure out where I'm going to start, and these are the close holes here that I'm talking about. And all you're going to do is fold over the ribbon. It's going to create a little loop on one side. Scrunch it up just a little bit if you can, or if you have the 2.5-inch ribbon. You'll see me do a little scrunch here just to get the ribbon nice and flat and into the cable ties. Hold it down, and then I'm just going to pull that cable tie until it's nice and tight. And that's going to create our first little loop of ribbon on our ribbon wreath. And I just love the colors in this checkered ribbon. Does it not scream fall? It totally screams fall. Again, so all I'm doing, folding the ribbon over in half, I'm squishing the end a little bit, and then I'm going to feed it through the cable ties that are close together. And then once you have your ribbon in there and you're laying it down, you can just tighten up that cable tie. And once it's nice and secured and nice and tight, you can just chop off the excess of that cable tie. And here you are. I'm finishing that first row of ribbon now. I just love how it looks already. I mean, there's nothing there, but I love it. And then what I'm going to do for the shared holes, this is where I'm going to put the larger ribbon. So this is 2.5-inch ribbon. We're folding it with the good side facing out. I'm going to crinkle it just a bit so it lays a little bit nicer. And then I'm just going to close that cable tie and cut off the excess. And then I'm just going to move on to another pattern right next to it. I'll figure out which one I want to do. And then I'm just going to do that same pattern all around using this 2.5-inch ribbon. And I must say this, the beauty part of these cable ties, they are made with 100% recycled products, and the plastic ends that we chop off are fully recyclable. So you have to hand it to Lori at Unique in the Creek for doing that, because I love that idea that everything comes from recycled materials and everything is recyclable. So hats off to Lori and the Unique in the Creek team for that. So I have done my first row of ribbon and everything should be secured, but I always like to put a little bit of glue down just to make sure nothing's going to go anywhere. So I just grab my hot glue and then I just start applying it around the ribbon right onto the wreath board. Of course, once that's all dry, I'm going to move on to my third row here, and I'm just going to pick a ribbon. I'm going to start with this blue pumpkin one and kind of such that I'm not duplicating it or putting one on top of the other. I'm just going to find a spot that has that brown burlap and the plaid as well. I'm going to follow the same procedure, folding it in half, creating that loop, scrunching it at the end, and then placing it into the cable tie. And once I've done that, I will just cut off the excess. And for me, I followed a pattern. I don't know if you want to or not. You don't have to. But for me, I like to see a little bit of a pattern. But in the midst of everything, you can't really notice that there is a pattern there, right? So, or is it just me? Of course, now that I've got my ribbon all down, I'm going to do the glue and the glue gun. And once that's all cool, I move on to my fourth row, and then I just do the exact same thing over and over again until all of my cable ties are full of ribbon. So let me know down below if you're actually going to try this, if you love the colors this year. This year they seem to be like that teal color, and even navy blues coming out really big. Navy blue came out a little bit last year, but this year seems to be really, really popular with this teal color and the oranges and the browns. I will admit, I am living for this color combination. And I just love these ribbons. I can't get over how much I love them. I can't say that enough. You can tell me to shut up now. You're like, okay, Dave, enough about the ribbons. Anyways, back to my wreath. And now I'm going to create the centerpiece for it. So I am just using a styrofoam ball that I got from my local dollar store, chopped it in half with a serrated knife, and I'm just pressing a little bit of a hole at the very middle, and then I'm going to feed in facing down, adding a little more glue with that mesh tubing. So here's the mesh tubing that I'm going to use. It's just a gold and a dark, dark brown. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to feed that mesh in a coil. Once that center dries perfectly, then I'm just going to start doing coils all the way around using this beautiful mesh tubing. And this mesh tubing I did get from Unique in the Creek as well. If I haven't mentioned enough, they are my new favorite place. That and the Lake County Treasures. They are just a local Canadian company. I can't say enough about them. I'll provide links down below in the description box if you're curious just to check them out, to see what they're all about. They have ribbon and all these wreath supplies. Everything that I'm using here today, they actually have on their websites and that you can purchase them. Now, I am an affiliate with Unique in the Creek. If you wish to use the link, it's down below. If not, that's totally cool. I'll still link their website down below for you to use. But here we go. I am just coiling this all the way around, creating my little center. And then once that's done, I have glued on this pipe cleaner. And if you can see the center, I have covered over the center 2 pieces just with all the glue and all the ribbons. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use that 5th row 2 holes right there to put my centerpiece in. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed the pipe cleaners through the 2 holes there. I'm just going to flip it over, and then I'm just going to tie that together, make sure it's nice and secured. And of course, once that's done, I'm just going to chop off the excess, just neaten up that backside a little bit, flip it over, and then I'm just going to start fluffing up my ribbon, make sure it's all nice and fluffed up. And here we go. Here is our final result, our autumn beautiful, beautiful ribbon wreath using a wreath board. I just love how this turned out. I was so happy to see it all come together.
And the materials list for our fun and exciting autumn wreath. First thing you'll need is a metal ring. So this one here measures 14 inches. And we are going to use decorative mesh today. I have 3 different colors today. There's going to need, you're going to need 6 packages of these. Chanel stems to attach your deco mesh to your wire wreath. Any decorative items, I have pumpkins, I have some pine cones, also ribbon. So in today's video, we're going to use ribbon. I have 4 rolls of these. Now these are wire ribbons. As well, I'm going to combine them with these smaller satin ribbons. You're going to need yourself a glue gun, glue sticks, scissors, or wire cutters if you happen to have them. And last but not least, a little sign that says fall or autumn or Thanksgiving or whatever occasion you're making this wreath for. So I know it looks like a lot, but it really isn't that much. So let's get right to the tutorial, and I'll see you on the other side. And our material list is out of the way. Let's get on to cutting our deco mesh. So I've unraveled the deco mesh from the packaging. There's a couple of ways that you can actually cut the deco mesh. One, obviously, with a pair of scissors. And if you want to have a ruler or anything where it has measurements on it, you can actually just measure out how long you want it. And I'm going to go, for mine, I do 7 inches. And then you can just basically cut along the line. And then there you have your 7-inch in length deco mesh. Another way, and a faster way, and I actually just discovered this way, is if you want to take a piece of cardboard, this here measures 7 inches, and what you can do is take your deco mesh, line it up to the edge. Let's see if I can get this nice and straight, and then just wrap it around several times and kind of pull it taut. Just keep wrapping it and wrapping it. Now I usually unravel the entire roll, but for the demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do this here. And then what you can do, slide your scissors in there and just cut. Then you're going to want to flip it over to the other side, still holding the other sections down, and just give it another good cut right across. And instead of one, you get a whole bunch. So that's just a little tip and a trick. So what you're going to do for each of your 6 rolls is you're going to cut 7 inches. And I think these are 6.5 inches wide. So it comes out to be 7 inches by 6.5 inches. Now for our wreath, let me just quickly go through this. For each section, you're going to need 5 bundles of 4 squares. So it doesn't matter the colors or anything. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 4 bundles of deco mesh. Does that all make sense? Hopefully it does. So really for each section, there's going to be 5 sections. So we'll do 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That'll be 30 bundles of 4 squares. Got that? Nice and easy, right? So I have all my deco mesh cut out here, as you can see. So these are each 7 inches in length, and for each bundle, we're going to have 4 7-inch lengths of deco mesh. So for this section, or for this part of the tutorial, you're going to need 4 deco mesh sections and a chenille stem. Now these ones I've actually cut down. This is the size that it came in. I just actually used scissors, or you can use your wire cutters to cut them in half here, and that'll give you that length. That's more than enough. So for each section, you can just roll it up, and a little trick that I do is I put it in between my peace fingers. So just slide that in, squish it down like that. And for the other ones, just roll them up. In the middle section, just slide it in between your fingers and hold it down. And then you just keep going for the 4. Roll it, find the middle, squish it down. Now don't worry about squishing it too much, because at the very end, when everything is attached to the wreath, you can actually just fluff it out. And of course, how tight you do the roll is the outcome. I do kind of like a medium roll, medium size roll. and then I'm just going to squish it in and hold that down, just like that. So you're going to take your Chanel stem or pipe cleaner, find the middle, and just place it in between. Grab your deco mesh, fold it in half. Again, just squish it down. Take that pipe cleaner and give it a good twist. And there's your section. So again, on your metal frame, you're going to need 5 of these per section. So in total, you're going to need 30 of these that are all pipe cleaned together. And you've got all of your bundles put together. So again, that's 4 pieces of deco mesh, 1 Chanel stem that will create, I'll show you right here, 1 bundle that looks like this. So with your wire frame, 1 bundle times 5 in each section. So you have 5 bundles in each section. Let's attach the first one. Now for this, we're going to use the second and the third wire all the way around. The end 2, we're just going to ignore for this step right now. When you start off, I like to start off my bundle attaching it to this fixed wire right here, such that they don't move. So for the first one, all you're going to do, again, the second and the third wire, plus this wire we're going to attach it to. So there you go. Just nice and simple. Bring it through, center your bundle a little bit, and then just twist it nice and tight. So what that creates is a little bit of an anchor for your first bundle. And then from there, you're just going to add 4 more, and then on our 5th bundle, we're going to attach it right there. All right, so let's complete that section, and then we'll come back. And here's the back side with this section completed. Now I did make a little mistake when I was saying in the beginning to do your 5th one on this anchor post here. What I would do, sorry, that was my bad, is the 1 is anchored on your first one, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go to the next section, our 1 begins at that anchor again. So that was my bad, I apologize for that. So it's 5 in total, and then your next section starts with 1 again, and that's anchored. So there you have it. I've twisted everything, and then let's look at the other side. And then this is when, at the very end, you can fluff everything up. But you can see this taking shape already. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue all the way around and get all of my bundles into every single section. And there we go. I have all of my sections completed with 5 bundles per section, and I've anchored every single section at that cross wire. So now let's flip it over, and then we can fluff it up. But there you have it. So now you have a base curly deco mesh wreath. And what you can do, fluff it up a little bit, go to each section, kind of bring out all those colors, give it a little bit of life because we've squished it all down. So now we're just gonna fluff it all up here. But there you have it. There's your basic curly deco mesh wreath. Next step, we can put all of our little decorations on it, kind of figure out where we want everything, and then we'll glue it down. But there's a great way to start. And you know what? Even if you don't want to glue anything down, or if you feel this is perfect, that's totally fine as well. But stick around for the next step, and I'll show you how I place everything down. Our basic wreath is complete. Now for this wreath, I am going to use ribbon to add into the basic wreath form. And what I'll do is I'll go through how I add the ribbon to the form. Let me clear off my desk surface a little bit. Always a good idea to have a little bit of a protective surface while you're working, because as you can see, the deco mesh really does shed a lot. So I am using a couple of different ribbons for this wreath here. So I'm using a couple of satin ribbons, and then also I am using a couple of wire ribbons. For this, I would bring out your ruler again, and what I do is I cut every 8 inches. So all of our ribbons will be cut down into 8-inch pieces, and then we'll bundle them all together for the wreath. So let me go through and cut all this, and I'll be right back. I'm halfway done cutting my wire ribbon and the satin ribbon. Now what I like to do is I like to give a little cut, decorative cut. I'm not too sure what you call that, to be honest with you, but it's a little V shape like you see in most ribbons or bows or anything like that. So what I do is I just fold it in half, take your scissors, angle it up, and of course the deeper you go, the larger your cut. So I just cut off a little bit, so when you unfold it, you have that nice V triangle shape right there at the end. So again, fold it over, line it up, line up your scissors, give it a good cut, and it's finished off really nicely. So I'm going to continue cutting the rest of my ribbons, and then I will see you on the other side. I have cut all of my ribbon, and every single one of them I gave them a little bit of a tail, even on the smaller satin ribbons here. To put these together, it's the same procedure you use for the bundles with the deco mesh onto the wire frame. We're just going to use pipe cleaners or chenille stems, and I have cut them down in half. So what you'll need is grab ribbon. For this, take the good side, put it towards the bottom, facing down I should say. Then you can take another one, off on a little angle, good side facing down, flip it over, kind of see how it is, and then for these ones, I'm going to add 2 of the little satin ribbons. Find your center, which is right about here, and then just squish it in, fold it over, grab that chenille stem while you're pinching the center, and then you're going to just wrap it, fold it like you did with the deco mesh, and then give it a good solid twist. Don't worry that it's all bundled up like that. Once you get it down, you can flatten it out just like that. All my ribbon is done. I have it all in my little ribbon bundles here. So now let's see how to attach them to your basic deco mesh wreath. All you need to do is the same procedure as you did the deco mesh onto the wreath. Is you have your 2 pieces of chenille stem, turn it over, kind of just eye where you want it to go, and attach it to the metal frame. Give it a couple of good twists, flip it over, and with everything else, just kind of fluff it up a little bit. I have placed all my ribbon onto the wreath form, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. What I'm just going to do now is I'm going to kind of go through, fluff it all up, get those ribbons separated a little bit such that we can see it all. There's no rhyme or reason or mathematical equation to placing your ribbons. It really is just a matter of stepping back, taking a look at it, and the beauty part of the chenille stems, if you think you have too many clumped together, you just flip it over, find the chenille stem, untwist it, and move it to wherever you want. So a good idea when you're doing this is to actually hang it up on the door. Stand back maybe 6 to 10 feet, take a look at it, look it over. If you're happy with it, leave it. If not, you can just change it all around. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to hang it up on my door. I'm going to stand back a little bit and kind of see how everything places out and if I'm happy with everything. We will come back and then I'll show you my favorite part. So I've taken a look at everything. I like how it's all set up. So I hung it up on my door. I stood back about 8 feet, took a look at everything. I'm quite happy how it turned out. And now, like I said before, this is my favorite part. So now you can take all of those decorations that you bought with your vision, with your imagination. We're just kind of lay everything now unglued and kind of see what layout we want, what we're going to use, what we're not going to use. So I've purchased some of these glitter pumpkins. I've also purchased leaves, glitter leaves. And for my sign, I actually picked up this Hello Fall pumpkin with burlap on it. So I think that looks really cool, and I think that'll look neat within our wreath. So my process is I usually lay everything down, I fiddle around with it, move stuff around, see what works well for me and what I'm happy with, and then I'll start to glue down. So what I'm going to go through now is I'm just going to take everything that I have. Oh, I also forgot, I did buy glitter pine cones as well. So another thing to add on. Now what I do is I just stand up, or if you're already standing, I stand up, kind of take a look at it, place everything down where I want it to go, and then I come in and glue everything down. So give me a couple of minutes to place everything, move it all around, and see how I want it to lay out. All right, I'll be back. Everything's laid down in kind of the area that I want it to be. Some items I'm going to have nestled in like that, for example, but in the gluing stage, that's where I'll kind of glue it down and have it right in there. So it's not just like this one sitting right on top. I'll actually nestle it down a little bit like that. But I think I'm overall pretty happy with the way this all turned out. What I will do next is I'm going to take my handy dandy little glue gun, heat it all up, grab my glue sticks, and glue everything down. There you have it. Everything's all glued down. I'm just going to give it a little bit to dry first, and then I'll hang it up and I'll show you what it looks like on my door. And here's the final reveal. A fall wreath that was inexpensive, easy, and fun to create. I am using a 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree as my base, and also these wooden clothespins. They come 32 in a pack. This little wooden disc round that says home on it, and of course some acrylic paints that I got from both the Dollar Tree and Dollarama. A paintbrush for our acrylic paints, and everything that started this whole wreath off and the whole theme, this ribbon, 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and of course my crafting utensils today. This is everything I'm going to be using for the project today. I'm going to start off with that wooden disc round, and I'm going to mix a little bit of brown acrylic paint into my orange, and then all I'm going to do is paint that color right on top over the HOME, so the home portion of this little wooden disc. I'm not going to paint anything else, the sides or anything. I'm just going to paint that home. And then for the background, I'm going to add a little acrylic brown paint and water, mix that all together, and that's going to create a little bit of a stain effect. And I'm going to go in there with my little paintbrush and get into those little crevices and those little details. And then after I do all of that, I'm going to get a larger paintbrush and finish the rest. Once I'm done, I'm going to let that dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to move on. I'm going to be painting these clothespins, but I'm not going to be painting the entire clothespin. In the past, I have painted the entire clothespin, the tops, the bottoms, the sides, and I thought today, why don't I just try painting the tops and let's see how that goes. So here I am, I'm grabbing that same orange I created before, and now I'm going to paint some of the blue on there. I did do 2 coats of this for each of the orange and the blue paint, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, a little more pop. And then I'm going to take that water and brown paint mixture, and I'm going to paint on some of the wooden clothespins. For the totals, I did 32 blue, 32 orange, 64 of the natural brown color that you see there. And then, of course, I did 32 of the natural color, so I didn't paint anything. So those are the totals for all of the clothespins. Now, when I was letting everything dry, I was looking at this home sign and I wanted to bring in the blue somehow. And then I just thought, let's dot it. So all I did was grabbed one end of my paintbrush and dipped it into the blue paint, and I just dotted it all the way around. And I thought it kind of looks kind of cool bringing everything together. Everything is now dry. I have all my piles. And the first thing I'm going to do is flip over that wreath form so the front faces down. I'm going to be using this method for this clothespin wreath. Now, for each section, I'm going to do 15 at the top, clothespins, and 11 at the bottom. And of course, we have 6 sections, and that's where all of my totals come from. So I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 packages of those clothespins. Now, to start, I'm going to do one section, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the clothespins on the outer 2 wires. And the inner wire is going to be for the inner layer of clothespins. And if you look at your clothespins, you've got 2 holes there. There's a small hole and a larger hole. I am actually going to attach it to the 2 wires using those 2 holes. So all you have to do is just open up that clothespin. It fits right in. So the outermost wire fits in the small hole, and then the inner wire fits in the larger hole. So again, it's that small hole and the larger hole you want in those 2 outer wires. It fits perfectly. It's just awesome. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to follow that same method all the way across, and I'm going to mix and mingle my blue painted clothespins, the orange ones, the stained ones, and the natural ones to fill it all in. And you can see that outer layer is done, and I have 15 clothespins. Now, let's work on the inner layer. And all I'm going to do is use that smaller hole and attach it to that inner wire. Now, this leaves it a little bit loose. It's not as secure as the other one. You can see it's kind of moving around. I'll show you in a couple of seconds what I did to secure everything. But I'm going to get all of my clothespins on there first, and then I'm actually going to attach them. So we have the 11 on the inside now. And all I'm going to do to attach everything is I'm just going to flip those over a little bit. You can see they're bouncing around, and I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm just going to put a dab of glue at the end of each one here, and I'm going to push it back in place, and then there's a little bit of glue that holds those clothespins in place, and they're not going to pop back out again. And I do this for every single section. I do the outer section, then I do the inner section, and then I glue that all together. And I'm just going to complete everything now. And once it's all complete, I've got my last one going in. I'm trying to decide what color to put as the last one. And I decide let's pick the blue. And then I'm just going to place that in there like I did with all the other wreaths. And then I'm going to just add that glue and push it to the clothespin behind. And there you go. We have our clothespin wreath all ready for our finishing touches. One of my finishing touches is a bow. So this is 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and I'm going to do a first cut at 48 inches, and a second cut I'm going to be doing at 24, and it's going to be 30 inches. I forgot what it was for a second, but I'm on track now. I'm just going to dovetail that shorter piece. That's going to be the tail portion of our ribbon. And for our actual ribbon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, find my center point, and then I'm going to unravel it, and I'm going to take one end and bring it back into the center, creating a loop. Then I'm going to take the other end, bring it right back to the center, and that's going to create a figure 8 shape. Now with that figure 8 shape, you can glue all your ribbons together if you want, or you can do that handy dandy stapler and just staple it together if you don't want to use hot glue. Now we have our figure 8 or infinity symbol. We are going to bring in one edge, fold it over just so you can find the center, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring that one loop inward to the center along with the opposite side, and that's going to create your 4 loops for this bow. Then you're just going to squish down right in the center, pinch it with your fingers. I'm going to grab a cable tie to attach all of this together, but you can use a pipe cleaner if you want. That's totally good. I am not going to close that cable tie tightly just yet. I'm actually going to feed my tail portion through that little section there, that cable tie. Once I find the middle, I'll just bring it down, and then I'm going to attach a pipe cleaner. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, and then you can use that pipe cleaner to attach it to your wreath if you need to. And there we go. We have our bow almost done. One little step to cover up that cable tie. I'm just going to cut off a little piece of ribbon. I'm going to fold it in the center, and then I'm going to use some hot glue just to attach it all together. And this little piece is going to be used to cover that cable tie right in the center. All I do is I just loop it all the way around, bring it to the back, put a little hot glue down, hold it there for a bit, and then I can bring the other section all around the top and then hold that there, let the glue settle. And now we have created our little bow with 4 little loops and those long tails. I did cut the tails down a little bit because I don't think it's going to fit and it's going to cover up my signage. But here we go. We are going to attach that home disc, wooden disc sign onto our wreath using hot glue. And all I'm going to do is I put a whole bunch of hot glue down, and then I'm just going to press it and hold it there until it dries, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Now let's see this bow, and those tails are way too long. It covers that home sign. I don't want it to. So all I do is I just mark it off with a little marker, and then I'm just going to dovetail those tails, making it a little bit shorter so that home sign is totally visible. Doing my last dovetail here, and then let's see how this fits right on there. Nice and perfect. Let's grab a whole bunch of hot glue, put it on the back. I'm going to cover the hole with the bow so we don't have to worry about it and we don't see it. And I'm just going to move it around so that home is not covered. Here we are, our final wreath. I just love the colors. It's non-traditional fall colors. I mean, you have the orange and the browns and the neutral colors, but that blue I just love. And of course, the inspiration was that ribbon that I found. Here is all of our clothespins with just the tops painted, and I actually think it really works for this wreath. You are more than welcome to paint the entire clothespin if you want, but I just love how this turned out with that little home sign, and of course, that bow, perfect for the fall-autumn season and hanging on your door. Here is that Dollar Tree wire wreath frame. And with this frame, I'm going to be using this little welcome sign with a little scarecrow on top, these little sunflower floral picks, green ribbon. This is 2.5-inch wired ribbon, some twine that I had left over, and I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree shirt. This is an orange color, and then of course I've got some aluminum foil and my regular crafting utensils to make this project. I am starting out, I'm just laying the t-shirt flat and I'm cutting out the back side of the shirt. So I just have one large piece of fabric. And then I'm just going to lay it over the wreath frame and add a little bit of glue right in the middle so it doesn't move on me. I just want it to stay in place, make sure it's going to cover the entire frame. And I'm just kind of adding glue right at the middle, at the bottom and the top. And then I'm going to start gluing it all the way around the frame. And I'm just adding the glue right onto the wire, pulling and pushing over that fabric right into the glue to make sure it's nice and tight. So I do want it to be pulled nice and tight. And of course, I'm just adding the little bits here and then cutting them off. I don't need that excess, and I'm just kind of cleaning up the back with my scissors. Once that's all done, I have my wire wreath frame all wrapped. We're going to make a little bit of a bow today, and this is 2.5-inch wire, and I'm going to cut these pieces at 16 inches. So I'm going to do a couple of those at 16 inches, and then I'm going to come in and do another cut at about 10 inches. So our ribbon lengths, I'm going to cut 4 pieces at 16 inches, and then I'm going to cut another piece at around 8 to 10 inches. And I'm just going to create little discs, and I'm going to be using my stapler again today. I've shown this in a past video. I love how fast this is, and I love how I don't burn my fingers on the hot glue. So I'm just making little rings with all of my ribbon pieces. You'll see I have the 2 lengths here, and then the one shorter one, and then the 2 other longer lengths are going to be our tails. Now I do end up hot gluing these 2 pieces together into making a little bit of a cross, and then that little piece I'm just going to put right in the center there using my little handy dandy tool so I don't burn my fingers. And you can see our little bow taking shape now. And our other 2 pieces I am going to be placing right on the back side to make my tails. And I'm just going to hot glue those down as well. And watch those fingers, that hot glue does seep through. Here is our little bow all ready to be attached to our wire wreath frame. I will trim off the edges and do dovetails, but I'll do that later on once it's on the wreath. This time around, I wanted to make the stem a little bit longer, so I'm just adding some aluminum foil with some hot glue. I'm going to wrap that around, and then I'm going to create a longer stem just by molding it with my hands, kind of twisting it around, seeing the shape that I want. Once I'm happy with the shape, I'm going to use that twine, and I'm just going to wrap that all the way around that aluminum foil stem that we just made, and I'm going to glue it every now and then. And once I'm done, I'll add a little more glue just to secure the end, and then I'm just going to chop off the excess, and I have our little stem all made and ready to go. And of course, now's my favorite time. We're going to decorate our wreath. I usually lay everything out first. Here I'm taking off the Scarecrow head and just kind of taking off all the tags and excess. And then I'm just going to kind of play around with it a little bit, trying to see where I want the Scarecrow head, where I want to place my bow. This is why I didn't cut the bow tails. I just kind of wanted to figure out where I wanted to put everything first before I did anything. And once I figure out where I want to place my bow and my Scarecrow, I just start gluing it all down in place. And then I start taking off those flower heads, cutting my leaves, making little piles of everything that I want to attach. And then I just start using my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to attach all those beautiful sunflowers and those leaves right there. Just kind of willy-nilly. I don't really have a plan. I have an image in my head of what I want to happen with this, and I just kind of keep going with it, adding those leaves, adding those sunflowers, using my hot glue gun. And then of course over on the right hand side is a little bit wrinkled, so I'm going to add and cover that. Now I'm just finishing off those tails with a little dovetail, and here is our little wreath all done using that Dollar Tree pumpkin wreath. I just love how cute this turned out, and I love how I stumbled across that orange t-shirt and used it to cover that wreath frame. Look, there's our little Skillet, our Scarecrow friend, the bow, our sunflowers, that extended stem that we made, and of course that orange t-shirt. I just love how this turned out, and I hope you did too. First, these are freshly fallen leaves, so they're not dried out. If you do have dried leaves, this isn't going to work. So what I did was I just folded it over and created a straight edge, and then I folded the side in a little bit, and then I just started rolling it really tightly. So that flat edge you want to keep nice and even, and you just roll it around holding it in your hand. And then all you have to do is grab another leaf. Now I chose medium-sized leaves to do the little center portions. And then you just fold that as well, creating a straight edge. And then all you're going to do is you're going to wrap it around the other leaf that you just curled up into a little roll. So it's almost like curling up a Swiss roll. We've all had Swiss rolls, the chocolate with the white center, whipped cream in the center. We're just making them out of leaves today. They're not edible. No, no, no. So all I'm doing is I'm just taking one leaf after the other, folding it, and then just wrapping around that center portion until I get the size that I want. Now I used, I don't know how many, maybe 5, 6, or 7 leaves for the center, and they're about medium-sized leaves, I would say. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to take other leaves, and this time I'm not going to fold them to a straight edge, but I'm just going to wrap them around. So I'm looking for some other medium-sized leaves, and I like different colors as well. So if you can find ones with different colors, browns, oranges, and reds, that adds to it as well. And again, I'm just not folding them. I'm just wrapping them around on the outside. And again, I think I used maybe 5, 6, or 7 leaves for the outside. And once I was happy with that, you can see all the different colors. I just love how it turned out. I love the colors. I'm just going to flatten the top parts a little bit just to open it up a bit. And then I'm just going to take floral wire. This is black floral wire I kind of had hanging around, and I'm going to wrap that all together. And you can use floral tape as well, floral wire, anything you have to wrap it all together. And I just keep wrapping and wrapping until I know it's secured, and I'm just going to cut the excess off there. And look at that. We have our rose made out of leaves. One final step I am going to do is I am going to cut off all those stems right at the bottom. And I'm just going to take my scissors and cut them off. And if you want to use like a barbecue skewer or a wooden dowel to attach your rose to, I start the same way. So I'm rolling it up. So you fold it over, you roll it up until you're about halfway, and then I put it in and wrap around the rest around that little wooden dowel. Now this is just a barbecue skewer that I cut down, and then I just follow the same process that we did with the first wreath, or the first rose, sorry. I'm so used to saying wreaths on my channel. Until you've got the size that you want, and then we just wrap it around with that floral wire. And again, I just open it up a little bit with my hands, just to open up that rose a bit, kind of fold back those leaves, and then I'm going to cut the excess off, and then we have our rose on our stem. Look at that. And then of course our first one as well, we have my 2 leaf roses all together. You can make a whole bunch to make a little bouquet. I had some 10-inch leftover mesh that I'm going to be using. This is poly mesh that I got. I can't remember where I got it. And I had these picks coming from the Dollar Tree. They have pumpkins and acorns in them. They're just called Maple Bouquet. And then I had some ribbon as well. And we're going to see which one we use today. Some come from the Dollarama, some come from the Dollar Tree, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm going to start off with cutting my deco mesh. This is 10-inch wide deco mesh. I have 2 different colors, and I'm going to be cutting them at 7.5-inch lengths. So it's going to be 10 inches by 7.5 inches. And here you can see I'm just using my rotary cutter. You can use a pair of scissors if you want, whichever works for you and whatever you have on hand. So for the deco mesh lengths, I'm using the 10-inch wide deco mesh, and I'm cutting 9 lengths at 7.5 inches. So I'm creating 3 bundles of 3 pieces of deco mesh in each bundle. Now it's time to assemble those bundles. I'm taking 2 of one color, 1 of another color, and I'm going to create my bundle. I'm just using the curly loop method, and all you're going to do is take that deco mesh, roll it into a tube, place it in between your fingers, hold it there, and then we can start with our second piece doing the exact same thing, rolling it in a tube. Once you're done rolling it up, place it in between your fingers to hold it, grab a pipe cleaner, place it right in the middle, transfer the deco mesh to your other hand, and then give it a couple of good twists, and that creates our little bundle here. And I'm going to be creating 3 bundles. This is the second one I'm creating. So I'm using 2 of the pattern deco mesh and 1 of the solid just to mix it up a little bit. And I'm doing the same pattern. So I'm rolling up my deco mesh into little tubes. Once I roll it into a tube, I'm going to place it in between those 2-piece fingers just to hold it in place. If you don't want to use your fingers, you can use a large paper clip or clothespin. Grab that pipe cleaner and then just twist it around the middle and secure it right in place, and you're creating another bundle. Once I have all three of my bundles ready to go, I'm going to attach them right in the middle on the bottom wire in between the two wires. Now, what I learned was once you attach it, that deco mesh bundle starts to flip all around. So what I did was I tied it right to the bottom, but then what I did was I took those two end pieces of pipe cleaner and I wrapped them around those two surrounding wires that are going up and down. And that's going to hold that deco mesh in place. If you don't do that, or if you don't glue it in place, that deco mesh is going to fall forward and backwards. So here I figured out a little way to kind of keep it secured so it doesn't fall back and forth. A really nice, easy way to do it. And now I can just play around placing that deco mesh how I want it, coming in, coming out. And once I have that all figured out, I'm going to attach my other pieces on there, and I'm going to place them one space, and then I'm going to place them into the other one. So I have my deco mesh bundle in the center. I'm going to leave a space, and then I'm going to add another piece of deco mesh bundle right in the space after that. Again, I'm wrapping it around that bottom wire. Then I'm taking those two pipe cleaner stems, wrapping it around the two wires surrounding it, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere and I have it in there nice and secured. Once I twist it, I'm going to cut off that excess, and then I'm just going to move the deco mesh loops around just to kind of place them where I want them so they kind of fan out and take up that space as well. Almost like fluffing it up. Now, of course, is time for our decorations. I love doing this part. I am actually cutting all of my stems, the floral picks, and those leaves, and I'm just kind of placing them in little piles just so I can use them and they're ready for me to go and I can see how much I'm using. Usually I do a dry run, or what I like to call a dry one, where we place everything down without gluing it. But I just kind of had an idea in my head and I kind of went with it. So I'm just gluing down the leaves first, and that's going to be our base for our decorations. I want to create a nice, colorful, fall-themed base. And once those leaves are all in there, I'm going to be using the little berries, acorns, and pumpkins to fill in the rest. And those are going to be our focal points for the wreath. I love these little floral picks at the Dollar Tree. Go pick them up. They're great. They're easy to work with, and they're so colorful. Once I get the last of the berries in there, you can kind of see how this is all taking shape. And now it's time to create a big, beautiful bow for this wreath. I am using a couple of different patterns. Here you see I have a pumpkin pattern I'm going to be using as red as well. And I'm going to be using cuts at 24 inches. I'm going to be cutting the pumpkin ribbon and this solid burgundy ribbon at 24 inches. And then I'm going to do another cut at 18 inches with using the pumpkin and the burgundy as well. I will give you all the cut lengths in a little bit. Hold tight, it's coming. And then more at the 14-inch mark. So these are all the cuts that I'm going to be using for this bow. And I'm using two different ribbons for this bow. So I am using 3 cuts at 24 inches. There's going to be 2 cuts at 18 inches and 5 cuts at 14 inches using both ribbon number 1 and ribbon number 2. Of course, you can choose whichever ribbon pattern and color you want, but these are the cut lengths that I am using today, where ribbon number 1 is the pumpkin wreath and ribbon number 2 is the solid burgundy wreath. And then I'm going to create rings just like we did right in the beginning. These are just wrapping it around and then taking that stapler once again and stapling the two ends together, creating a little ring. You don't have to use the stapler. You can use your hot glue gun. I just found that this is so much easier and it does stay in place as well. So I'm doing that for all of my ribbon except for 2 of the 14-inch in the pumpkin pattern and 2 of the 14-inch in the burgundy color. Once I get everything into rings, I start arranging it. I'm laying one flat and then two crisscross, and I'm alternating between each pumpkin wreath and each of the solid ribbon, putting them on angles, and then I'm using the 24-inch, and now I'm using the 14-inch, just kind of making it look pretty. And once I have that all in a pile there, I'm going to take my pipe cleaner, flip it over on the other side, and then I'm going to give the middle just a really good squish to hold everything in place. Once that's all done, I'm going to take that pipe cleaner and I'm just going to really pull tight, make sure those ribbons don't go anywhere. And I'm just going to wrap that around a couple of times and place that to the side for our tails. Now with our tails, these are the 14-inch ones. I'm just going to cut little dovetails right at the end. I am using 2 of the pumpkin and 2 of the solid color. Again, these are the 14-inch ones we cut earlier. And then I'm just going to squish that center, bend it a little bit, and then add that to the 2 stems of those pipe cleaners. Then we can flip it over, arrange everything, fluff up those little loops at the top, arrange how we want everything to lay out onto our wreath, and we are done with our little bow. Unfortunately, I had some camera issues. It did not record how I attached this bow onto my wreath frame, but I just wrapped it around the top with some hot glue. And then here we go. We have our tails intertwining in between those wires. We have that beautiful bouquet at the bottom. And I added a little pumpkin detail right at the top with my bow. I loved working with these ribbons, and I loved working with these floral picks from the Dollar Tree. And we have a little deco mesh in there to help with the backdrop of our beautiful leaves and pumpkins. I just love how this wreath turned out. Look at all of this fall stuff from the Dollar Tree. Look at these cute little sweater pumpkins. Those are actually clips. I mean, this plaid plush pumpkin with a little sign that says thankful on it. I mean, so cute. There's so much stuff this year. We all love gnomes on my channel. We have gnome ornaments, gnome little stickies. So all of this comes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use this today to make a floral arrangement along with these wooden dowels and of course that green floral foam and my regular usual crafting utensils. I'm starting off using the floral foam. I just unwrapped it. I'm throwing a whole bunch of hot glue right at the bottom, and then it fits nice and snug right in the little tin that we have. And I'm just planning out what I'm going to be using for this floral arrangement. I knew this sign, I wanted to be kind of a focal point. All I'm doing is I'm adding some hot glue, and these are just barbecue skewers that I am using to attach to the back. Once they're dry, I'm going to kind of figure out how much I really need to chop off because I don't want it to hang that high. I take off a little bit with my wire cutters, and then I just plant that right into the floral foam. Once I have that, I'm going to start with the longest or highest layer, and I'm just going to peel off these little stickers. They're so annoying. Does anyone else have issue with these? Anyways, I'm going to peel the stickers off those, and with the mums, I'm actually just going to cut the stems a little bit shorter. I'm going to rearrange everything, and now I'm going to start putting that back layer, which is the highest layer, on. So I'm just going to fan out these little wheat grasses, and then the 2 on the side, I'm going to put it on an angle, and the 2 in the middle, I'm actually going to put straight up. So this is going to be the highest point of my floral arrangement. Now I wanted to use these little sweater pumpkins. I'm just going to twist off these little clips on here, and then I'm going to add barbecue skewers right into those because it's styrofoam right underneath. Add a little hot glue on the end so they don't go anywhere. I'm going to do that for the 2 of them, and the 3rd one I'm just going to leave on its own. Those are going to be off to the side to dry. Now let's add in some of those beautiful little mums. All I'm doing is I'm pressing them right into the green floral foam. I'm not using hot glue because they're going to stick in there nicely. And I'm just kind of trying to decide where I want to put these little pumpkins. I'm going to intermix them with the florals. So there's one going in, and I'm loving how this is turning out. I keep moving that green pumpkin thinking I'm going to use it, but I don't end up using it in the end. So what I'm doing here is I'm filling up the medium level and the lower level full of those carnations as well. I'm going to add a little bit of interest using these white pumpkins, which just pop with the burgundy yellow and orange colored mums. These are great little Dollar Tree finds. I love these little gnomes on sticks. I'm going to throw him in there, and then I'm going to glue that one last sweater pumpkin on the side and finish off adding more of those mums in there as well. I'm going to glue one to the side just to cover up a little bit of area that needs to be covered and we don't want to see. And then I'm going to add some loose leaves right around that little pumpkin to really make him pop. And the back, it is empty. So let's fill it up. We have some leftover floral arrangements. I'm just going to fill that all up. So now you can look at this floral arrangement using a 360-degree view. I did end up changing out that first gnome to another gnome. This is a gnome ornament. I liked the colors on this one, and his little plaid hat matches the little pumpkin pattern as well. So I loved how that turned out. But there you go. We have our floral arrangement all decked out, ready for fall. Here it is in my studio with those long wheat grasses, that beautiful wooden sign there. I love the colors of those mums. And of course, this fall little steel basket just drew me in. I had to do this, I had to have it, and I had to put this all together. Here it is in my living room, and you previously just saw it in my kitchen. And of course, since we have, dressed it up all the way around, we can walk on the back side of this floral arrangement, and it doesn't have to go up against the wall. I just love that little basket. I love how everything turned out. That little gnome, our little sweater pumpkins, and of course that little green pumpkin on the side.
Is our pool noodle that I got from the Dollar Tree. And as well, I have this burlap ribbon. It's 9 feet long. That comes from the Dollar Tree as well. And on Amazon, I found this Brown Series felt package. And I just thought this is absolutely perfect and what I needed for my project today. As well, I'm going to use some duct tape and scissors. If you have a rotary cutter, that works as well. And our handy dandy glue gun and glue stick. That's everything that I'm going to use today. Here is our pool noodle. I just picked any color. This just happened to be a lime green. There was no conscious decision on it or planning. And all I'm going to do is twist it around into a circle. And then I'm going to grab some duct tape. And I'm just going to get that all closed off right at the seam there. You'll see I put a little bit of tape on just to hold it in place. And then once I get it into place, I kind of shape it a little bit because it was a little wonky. And then I'm going to add a lot more tape on here just to make sure it's nice and secured and it doesn't come loose on me whatsoever. So again, this duct tape just came from the Dollar Tree. You can pick any color you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to cover it anyways. I'll show you that in a second. Now this ended up being about 16 and a quarter, 16 and a half inches wide. So I thought that was a really good size and I was really happy with that. And how I'm going to cover this green foam is I'm actually just going to take burlap with some hot glue and my handy dandy little tool, hold that in place, make sure it's nice and dry, and then I'm just going to tightly wrap that burlap ribbon all the way around. I'm not going to lie, I thought I was going to get away with 3 rolls, but you see me just using the end of the 3rd roll, and I had just a smidgen bit left over. So I used maybe about 10, 12 inches off of a 4th roll. So it did take a little bit, 4 rolls in total. But you know what? My wreath is all covered. You don't see that green anymore. And I was happy with this burlap ribbon. And once I'm done gluing it all down, letting it dry, of course, here's that handy dandy little tool that I think every crafter should own. And here we go. This is our base wreath all ready to go. And our Amazon find here, which is these felt fabric sheets, the brown series. There's 4 different colors in here. And it says it's 8 by 12 inches. So I'm just going to make sure it is. And yep, 12 inches, 8 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a little grid on here that's going to give me 2-inch by 4-inch squares. So what'll happen is out of each piece of felt, I'm actually going to get 12 leaves out of this. So here I am just measuring up my grid. Again, those are 2 by 4-inch squares, and then I'm just going to cut them all up using a pair of scissors, and you can use a rotary cutter with a mat if you want. And I'm just going to create my little triangles, and I do that for all 4 of my colors. So there's a cream color, a light brown, a dark brown, and then like a beigey taupe color. And once I'm done cutting them all up, there's a couple of different ways we can create the leaf for this. In the top left-hand corner, you can just see me really quickly going through making my template. It's nice and easy. You can just do a 2x4 square and then sketch out your leaf pattern, cut it out, and then you can trace it onto the felt like I am showing you here on the main screen. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking 2 pieces of felt at the same time, following my template, and just cutting all around. And that's going to create a couple of our leaves. And what I wanted to do was maybe just to make it a little bit simpler, a little bit easier on me rather than copying the template. I just decided to eyeball it. I was totally fine with that. And as you can see, once I'm done here, it all looks pretty much the same. And our leaves are starting to form. Again, I have 4 colors, so I'm doing this exact same thing to all 4 of my colors and getting all my piles ready to create my leaf. So here are all 4 of my piles, and all I'm going to do is put a little dab of glue, or a line of glue I should say, right at the bottom of one of the ellipses that we just made, and then I'm just going to fold it over. Hold it there for a little bit, and then that's going to create our little wreath. So again, I just do a little line on the outside, like a V shape if you want. Fold it over, watch those fingers with that hot glue. Hot glue is hot, and then that creates our little leaf right there. And I continue the same process over and over again with all of my colors. All in all, I used approximately 35 to 40 of each of those colors. All right, so that's 35 to 40 leaves in total, what I used to create this wreath. And here I am, I'm just placing my first leaf down, and all I'm doing is I'm adding glue to the place that we folded it over, and then holding it down just for a couple of seconds to make sure it doesn't go everywhere. And then what I do is I'm just making sure that the leaf part is overlapping the stem part for this. And since I have 4 colors, I do a quarter of each color. So a quarter of the wreath is in one color, a quarter of the wreath is another color, etc., etc. And I wanted to do a little ombre effect here, so I'm going dark to light, finishing off with that beautiful cream color. And once you're getting towards the end, you just pick up the leaves of the other one, fold it over for a little bit, and then put your leaves underneath that one as well. And that creates your seamless felt autumn wreath with a little surprise of that Dollar Tree pool noodle. Who would have thunk, eh? Nobody's ever going to know, but look how beautiful this all turned out.
Our third and final pumpkin using that pumpkin wreath frame, and I'm going to be using these paper lunch bags along with some acrylic paint. There's orange, tan, brown, and a burgundy color or red color, a paintbrush, and I'm going to be using my hot glue gun today for this project. I'm starting off with our lunch bags, and what I'm going to be doing with these is just opening them up, and then I'm just going to flatten it down. I'm not cutting it or ripping it at this point. I'm just opening them up, and I'm just putting my hand in there, laying it down flat, and then what I'm going to do once I have 2 pieces laid down flat, I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to add a line of hot glue right at the open portion. And then I'm going to place the other one with the open ends facing together right on top and laying that down. You don't have to worry about being precise or neat because we're going to, as you can see, crinkle it all together and we're going to really twist, making a nice long piece of crinkled paper for our pumpkin wreath. I'm going to be creating 8 of these in total. That's going to cover 1 per wire, so that's 1 paper bag per wire. And I'm just repeating the same process over and over again, gluing them together. And then once they're all glued together, I squish them down into little logs, if you will. And then we're going to attach those logs onto our wire wreath frame. Here is our frame once again. I'm going to take one of our little paper logs and I'm just going to attach it onto the wires. That's why we have 8 of them. I'm going to just add a little hot glue right onto the wire and then I'm going to wrap that paper right around and attaching it to the wire. Now, hot glue is hot. I burn myself a lot with doing this, so please be careful. Watch those fingers. It is a little hot. As we all know, as crafters know, hot glue is very hot, but I'm just warning you, I did burn myself a lot during this one. I mean, I was going too fast and I wasn't paying attention. It's my own fault, but just be cautious. I don't want anybody hurting themselves. To wrap it around, I just use a little bit more hot glue, chop off the excess of those paper bags, and then just add hot glue to the back. I'm not worried aesthetically how this looks at the back, because really we're not going to be seeing it once everything is done and over with. Unless you look at the back side, obviously. But here I am just continuing on, getting those wires covered with our little paper bag bundles. And then the final result, so far, we have all of our bundles on those wires, and now I'm going to fill in our empty spaces. I'm going to do kind of the exact same thing as opening up those paper bags, but I'm not going to attach them together. I'm just going to use one at a time, and I'm going to crinkle them up like we did with the previous ones, and then I'm just going to fit them right inside those open spaces or those negative spaces using glue to attach it to the little wrapped up paper bag we had previously. So you can kind of see here, I'm just laying it right on top of that other paper bag, gluing it right in place, and then you see how that fills up that negative space really nicely. Again, I'm just opening up the paper bag, squishing it all together, giving it a good couple of twists, and then I'm going to glue that down on the latest piece of paper and filling in that negative space. And I do take my time with this. I kind of want to make sure I have everything covered and there's no openings left. There's about maybe anywhere between 2 and 4 pieces, I shouldn't say pieces, of the bag, paper bags that I used to fill in each negative space. So it all depended on how closely I twisted it, etc., etc. So I did buy 2 bundles of the 30 paper bags and I used most of them. Here we see how it is all together, and now I'm going to create another longer stem, and I just opened up a paper bag, hot glued it to the original stem, and then I just gave it a couple of really good twists at the end, creating a new longer stem for our pumpkin. So far, here is our paper pumpkin wreath, all ready to be decorated. And again, I spoke of technical issues earlier. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me originally painting this pumpkin. What I did was I mixed together some Mod Podge orange paint and a little bit of brown paint, and I painted the entire pumpkin orange, and then I painted the stem a brown color. And while everything was still wet, I poured some of that original mixture, orange mixture, into a plate, added more brown, and now I'm going to add some low lights to our pumpkin, or some little rustic looking worn out pumpkin features. And I'm just using a large paintbrush, applying it willy-nilly. There's no method to my madness. I'm just kind of going into the little crevices, creating some interest with our pumpkin so it's not just one color. Of course, it's dirty work, but somebody has to do it. And to create a little bit of a bow, if you will, I'm going to create my own little raffia. You can use raffia paper if you want, but I'm just cutting up a paper bag into strips. I'm going to crunch it all together in my hand to get it all wrinkly. And then once I start pulling them apart, I take the really long pieces, add them into a little pile, as you can see at the bottom here. These are the longer pieces that I have. And then the medium-sized pieces I'm going to leave right down below, and those are going to be the tails. So those long pieces you see here, right at the top, those are going to be the bow, and these shorter pieces at the bottom that are hanging down, those are going to be the tails of our bow. What I'm going to do to attach them all together is just use a little cable tie, and then I'm going to fold over those ends of the longer pieces of paper right into the center, and then I'm going to attach that bow using this little cable tie right in the center, cut off that excess, and with a little hot glue and an extra piece of paper, I'm just going to cover that cable tie so we don't see that, wrap it around a couple of times around that bow, and then we have at the very end a little more hot glue just to keep that all nice and secure together. And once we're done that, we have our little homemade raffia bow. Very rustic, very rough looking, but I think it suits this pumpkin so well. Adding some hot glue towards the back, placing it right where the stem is, holding it down until it dries, and then once everything is dry, we have our little rustic pumpkin made out of paper bags with our little homemade raffia bow. I just love how this pumpkin turned out. It's very rustic. It's very worn in. I just love how this looks. And we are off making our wreath with our 14-inch wire wreath frame. And this is what started this wreath off, or gave me the inspiration to make this wreath. My favorite color is October. I love the colors in this, especially that background color, the seafoam green. I'm using 6-inch by 5-yard deco mesh pieces. I have 2 patterns here, and I'm going to be using 6 bundles or packages for this wreath. 3 of one color, 3 of the other. And this orange and green colored little pumpkin sweater clips and our burlap crafting fabric. This is 2.5 inches wide. And these mums. So I bought 3 packages, or I should say 3 bouquets of these mums, 2 in one color, 1 in another color, and I'm going to be using my regular crafting tools to build this project. I'm starting off, I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of pipe cleaners in half. In total, I did 24 pipe cleaners cut in half to make 48, because we're going to make 48 bundles. And of course, we're going to have to cut all of our burlap. All of our mesh. I'm going to be using a cutting mat, but you can totally use a ruler. Here's a little hack for you. I got this little basket. It has these circular holes on the side, on both sides, and they're nice and even. And this just comes from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to take my deco mesh roll, make sure the flap is on the upside, and I'm just going to stick this wooden dowel in a hole, and then I'm going to stick it in the same hole on the other side. So you can see there, I have my first hole and my second hole. They both line up. Then I'm going to take my second roll, make sure the flap is at the top, do the exact same thing on the exact same level. It just totally worked out that the pattern was exactly the same. You can use square baskets if you want. This one just ended up being extremely perfect for this deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. Then I'm just going to line up the ends of our mesh, pull up a little bit, and then I'm just going to cut a little bit using my rotary cutter just to make everything nice and even. And I'm pressing down really hard because there's 3 deco mesh pieces. I'm cutting today at 22 inches. So every piece of deco mesh is going to be 22 inches in length. And all I do is I pull up from my little contraption, releasing the deco mesh, and I'm going to cut at 22 inches, and boom, we have 3 pieces of deco mesh with 1 cut. I love little hacks like this. Now, I didn't come up with this idea. I saw it a little while ago on Pinterest. I cannot remember the name of the person who did this originally. I'm so sorry. I would totally give credit for this. I just can't remember and I can't find the post again. So if you know or you are the person, let me know. So here we go. I am doing the exact same thing for my different colored. And once I have all my bundles created, I'm just going to take those bundles apart. So I have single pieces because we're going to use one piece per bundle. Here is our little piece, and we're going to start off with our little Woodland ruffle bundle. I have one little piece of my deco mesh, which is 22 inches, my little rock, which holds it and weights it down, half a pipe cleaner, and a little clip. All you're going to do is roll one end a couple of times. I usually do it 3 to 4 times. I like a nice good roll there. Add that clip. I'm using a plastic clothespin, whatever is handy for you, you can totally use that. And then we're going to turn it around, flip it to the other side, and we're going to create another roll. So I'm rolling it 3 or 4 times. Once that happens, place your thumbs down as an anchor, and then we're just going to crinkle everything in using our index fingers as the middle piece. So once we get to our loop on the other side, we squish it together. This is our little woodland ruffle. We have one little ruffle at one end, the ruffle, and another ruffle or another loop at the other end. Then you just take your pipe cleaner, twist it a couple of times, and you've just created your first little bundle. Why don't we go through that together one more time, creating that woodland ruffle. So I'm just placing that little weight there just to hold the deco mesh in place. We're going to roll it a couple of times at one end, clip it, flip it around, and then we're going to add another loop at the opposite corner by rolling a couple of times. And then you're going to place your thumbs as an anchor, and you're going to walk your fingers using your index fingers as the middle. So I'm just following that middle white line. Once you get to the end, you can take off the clip. I usually hold it down with my index finger, squish the center, and we've created our second woodland ruffle. Take that pipe cleaner, bend it in half, put it in the center, transfer the deco mesh to the other hand, and then you're just going to twist, and you can see our ruffle bundles all coming together already. So I'm going to do that for all of our 48 pieces. And how we're going to lay it out is in each section, I'm going to do the first 2 rows and the last 2 rows to attach. So we're going to do the outer 2 rows and the inner 2 rows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 on the inner, 4 on the outer. So I'm going to flip my wreath facing down. And again, we're going to start with the outer 2 wires. Take your bundle face down with your your pipe cleaners facing up, and then twist around those 2 outside wires. You're going to give it a good couple of twists. And then for me, with what I'm doing today, I'm going to alternate. So I'm going to alternate between the green and beige and the white and beige on the outside and on the inside as well. And I'm just going to keep attaching those on there until I have all 4. I'm going to reposition them a little bit. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to attach in the inner 2 wires. So we do the exact same thing as we did on the outer 2. We're just taking our pipe cleaner, feeding it through, giving it a good couple of twists, and then I'm going to add all 4 on those 2 inside wires, alternating between my 2 colors. Now I'm going to spread them out, and I'm also going to chop off the excess. This is what I like to do. You do not have to do this. This is how I make sure everything's attached, make sure everything's clean. We have our 4 outside, 4 inside on a zigzag pattern. Then I add a little bit of hot glue on the ends of those pipe cleaners, let that dry, and then that's going to secure everything in place, and the pipe cleaners are not going to come through. Here is our first section all done, and you can see that woodland ruffle just fills it up so beautifully. Now I'm just going to finish off the rest of my wreath with my final cuts and a little bit more of that hot glue on those pipe cleaners just to hold it in place, to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. And then, of course, my favorite part is when I flip it over and I see my wreath. I love how this turned out. I am so happy with it. I love the ruffle method. I love the curly loop method. This is just 2-in-1, which is amazing. Now that we have our base wreath ready, I'm going to cut our burlap craft fabric. And I'm actually cutting these at 24 inches. Now my ruler only goes to 18, so I'm gonna go up to the 6-inch mark and then do my cuts there. But the total length of these are 24 inches. And I'm gonna cut 5 of these pieces. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then once I have that all ready, it's time to make our little bundle bow. What I'm doing is I'm folding over one end, and I'm going to fold that end right to 7-inch mark. And at the 6-inch mark, I'm going to squish it all together with my fingers. So our bow is technically, or our loop I should say, 6 inches, and then we have a really nice long tail. To hold it, I'm just putting it in between my index finger and my middle finger. You can use a large paper clip or a clothespin if you want to hold it all together if you can't fit it into your fingers. This burlap crafting fabric is really nice, but it is really thick. So if you have small hands, I have very large hands, you can use a paper clip or whatever you find. Then we're going to take a pipe cleaner and I'm going to wrap that around our bow where my fingers were. And I'm going to keep the long ends so I can attach that to the wreath. And I'm just going to fluff up my bow a little bit. I mean, it looks a little disheveled now, but we'll make it look pretty later. And as I always say on my channel, I always like to do a dry run. So I take everything that I have, throw it on my crafting table, and I start adding it to my wreath. At this point, I don't glue anything down. I'm just kind of seeing where I want everything. I can change it up if I want, because adding the hot glue is very hard to get off deco mesh. If you've done it before, you know if you've made a mistake or you put something somewhere you don't like, it's really hard to take that off the deco mesh. So I like to do a dry run, and then once I'm done the dry run, I add pipe cleaners to the back of my sign, and I'm going to use those to attach my sign to the wreath. So I figured out I want it on a little bit of an angle, and then all I'm going to do to attach that sign, and I do the same thing with the bow, is I'm just going to feed that pipe cleaner right to the back and attach it on a couple of the wires. So I'm going to do that for the top side, and I'm going to do that for the bottom side as well. You can see I'm just twisting it in the 2 middle rows here. It doesn't matter where you put it. You can put it anywhere, those top 2 rows, middle 2 rows, and then there you go. It's all nice and secured. And like I said previously, I'm going to do the exact same thing for the bow. I'm just feeding those pipe cleaners through, giving it a couple of good twists, take my scissors, chop off the excess, add a little hot glue on the end, let that dry, flip it over, and now I've got my sign and my bow all ready to go to glue everything else down. And of course, I just take my hot glue now and I'm just going to glue everything down. It's all nice and dry and all together. And I just love how this turned out. I've got my sign right in the middle, which was the inspiration for this wreath with those mums. That burlap fabric just was amazing to work with. I loved it. And of course, those little sweater pumpkins. I hope you love this wreath as much as I do. The deco mesh colors I loved. It just all worked out. And look at the length of those tails. Oh, this looks so great, and I love this on my wall. And I hope you enjoyed this video and this wreath as well. I am all set for the fall season.
I started with just printing off a couple of pictures. I have 3 pictures in total on a LaserJet printer, just on regular computer paper. I also have this piece of scrap wood. I'm going to be using Mod Podge today, along with a handy dandy little paintbrush, a ruler, a cutting utensil. Today I'm going to be using a X-Acto knife, some twine, and a cutting mat. And of course, a little piece of excess wood as well that I had kind of laying around. That's everything I'm going to use today. So let's get started and I'll show you how to put it together. What I'm doing here is I'm just kind of measuring my wood block to see the size that I want to cut out my printed photos at. This photo is just me and my mom taken a couple of years ago. Look at her smile, and it's just awesome. I love this picture of the two of us. And I'm going to cut out the other two photos as well. This picture here is actually my great grandmother and my grandmother in Poland. And I don't know the date of this picture, but I just love this picture. It's a great little memory. So to start, I'm going to take my block and I'm just going to wipe it down. Just make sure the surface is nice and clean, nice and smooth. And then what I'm going to do with my Mod Podge is I'm actually going to put a really heavy coat of Mod Podge on there. So I want to make sure that the size of photos actually are matching and will fit on the wood block. And then, like I said, I'm going to put an enormous amount of Mod Podge on there. And I'm going to fill that whole side. And then you're going to place your printed photo. Now, this is inkjet on white paper. You're going to place it face down. And then all I'm doing here is with one hand, I'm going to hold it in place. And with the other hand, I'm just going to rub that all the way in. Now, I'm going to start on my second one as well, but just a little note. Just do the Mod Podge on the one side. So normally you do Mod Podge, then you add whatever you want to add there, and then you add Mod Podge on top. Don't do that for this. Just leave it alone. So you're going to put your photo down, and then you're just going to leave it. Now, what I decided to do was Mod Podge the final side as well. So I'm adding my 3 photos, doing the same thing, just pushing it into the Mod Podge. But there's one side that I left blank, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to Mod Podge that just to make sure it matches, and then I'm going to Mod Podge the top as well. So I wanted everything to match, and I knew like the Mod Podge would change the consistency just a little bit, so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do the whole thing. And once that's done, you're going to let that dry for a full 24 hours. So you can see everything's dry here. I'm going to take a little bit of water, and I'm also going to take a rag. And I'm dabbing water and making small circular motions. Now, when you're doing this, you want a little bit of pressure, but you don't want to scrub it because you'll take everything off. What you're looking for is taking off that white pulp, and you can see it kind of coming off here. I dab it a little bit, let it soak for a bit, and then I just do very small circles taking off the pulp, and you can kind of see it right there. I'm going to clean up my mess that I created. And once that dries a little bit, I'm going to add on my twine. So here we go. I'm just going to take this twine, I'm going to hot glue it down right at the top, and then I'm just going to wrap it around kitty corner to kitty corner. And that's going to kind of create a little bit of a abstract pumpkin effect, I guess you will. You know how there's the lines in the pumpkin, the curves in the pumpkin? That's kind of what I was going for here. I mean, it's a square pumpkin. It's not exactly a pumpkin, but it's pumpkin-ish. Let's say it's abstract, modern, cubist pumpkin. Does that make sense? But here you go. I'm wrapping it all around, and I'm just going to glue the excess at the bottom, cut that off once I'm happy with how everything turned out. And then I'm going to take that little piece of scrap wood for the stem of the pumpkin at the top. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of hot glue down there, and then I'm just going to glue that on, holding it right in place. And there you go. Our little pumpkin photo block is all complete with our photos on there. Here it is. There's my great grandmother and my grandmother. I just love how this turned out. I also made those topiaries as well on the side.
I have a 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree, and I found these burlap crafting fabric packages. They're 8.2 feet long, and I got 4 of them just to try it out to see. And at the Dollarama, I found these little packages of pumpkins and pine cones. They have like a shimmery metallic. There's like a copper package, a gold package, and like a green shimmery package. So I got 6 packages in total. And for a little sign that I'm going to add, I'm using this wood hanging decor and this little sticker from the Dollar Tree. That's everything that I'm going to use today to create this wreath. So I have my skillet going, and the first thing I'm going to do is add this burlap to my frame. All I'm going to do is take that little handy dandy tool, apply a little glue down there, and then I'm just going to attach that right there onto the wreath frame, and then I'm going to wrap that burlap all the way around. Now this burlap is about 2.5, 3 inches thick, and like I said, it's just a little bit over 8 feet long. And that's not going to cover the whole thing. So halfway through, I'm just going to use that glue skillet with the tool, apply that glue, use the other end of that tool just to kind of hold everything in place so I don't burn my fingers, add a little bit more glue down, and use that other end to push it. And to attach my second roll that I'm going to wrap around, I do the same method using that handy dandy tool, and then I just start wrapping it all over again. And when I reach the end, I'm going to grab that tool and grab that glue skillet, and I'm going to do the same thing, cut off the excess, and then boom, we have our base wreath all ready to go. I'm just going to unpackage all of my pumpkins and pine cones. I just love this little package. It's so cute. The colors are great. So I'm just kind of sorting everything out. And now I'm just going to kind of plan where I want to put it. And I'm going to start with the larger ones, and I'm just going to dip the bottoms into that glue skillet. And one thing I like about the glue skillet is it does have a temperature gauge. So when you heat it up, you can put it on high, and then once it's all melted, you can put it right down to the low setting as well. And all I'm doing is I am dipping all my pumpkins and gourds and eventually my pine cones, and I'm just randomly attaching them to my wreath base here. And you can just see me going to town, adding all of these wonderful little embellishments onto my wreath, making our beautiful fall wreath. And of course, using the skillet is nice and easy. It's nice and quick. Here we are. I'm finally done attaching everything to that base, and now it's time for a little embellishment. I'm going to start off making a very, very simple bow. I'm going to cut the burlap. So this is the same burlap that I used to wrap the wreath. And I'm going to cut 3 pieces at 18 inch. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. And then I'm just going to pinch together just a little bit above the center mark. So again, you're folding it in half, pinching it a little bit above the midpoint, and I'm going to place it in between my 2-piece fingers. This is a very simple bow. The burlap is a little bit thick, so I don't want to overwhelm it. So right at the end, I'm going to attach it all with a pipe cleaner, twisting it, and you see I have 3 loops, and then I have 6 tails at the other end. And what I'm going to do with that excess pipe cleaner is I'm just going to use my scissors, cut it off, and then one thing that I like to do is just add a little bit of hot glue there just to hold everything in place so that bow doesn't come unraveled. Now that our bow is done and set to the side, I'm going to create our little hello sign. So from the Dollar Tree, I have this little sticker package and this little wood plank. I'm going to leave the wood plank the same natural color that it is. I'm not going to stain it, but if you want to stain it, go right ahead. I did have a little trouble, I'm not going to lie, with the sticker. I believe once I peeled off that plastic coating, the sticker was supposed to come with it, but it didn't. Now, all I'm interested in is the hello letters or the hello font. So I did take my X-Acto knife and I peeled off very, very carefully in little sections that hello and added it onto my wood plank. Of course, like I said, I think they were supposed to come off with the plastic, and I tried to do it here, but it didn't work again. So it was a little bit of a mess up on my part, but hey, you know what? I made it work in the end, and it did come out really, really well. I was very happy with it once I got it all going and got it all down. And here is our little hello sign. I just love how it turned out. What do you guys think? How about we talk about that giveaway right now? All there is, one simple rule. You do have to be a resident of the US or of Canada in order to enter and for your chance to win this giveaway today. How do you enter? All you have to do is leave me a comment down below. That's it. That's all. Anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to say, or if you just want to leave me a happy face emoji, that's great. All you have to do is just leave a comment right down below, and that is your entry and your chance to win our giveaway today. What's included in our giveaway? Well, you've seen me use this morning. This is the Grace Monroe Home and Surebonder collaboration glue skillet, made by crafters for crafters. Included is the glue skillet, the two tools that you've seen me use this morning as well, the glue pellets, you get 1 pound of that, and you've also seen me use that pink silicone mat. That's also included in the giveaway package. So remember, a resident of the United States or of Canada, what are you going to win? This wonderful handy dandy new tool. And how to enter? Just leave a comment right down below. Let's get back to making that wreath. I want to finish it. How about you? Yes, let's finish this wreath. I have my hello sign and I have my wreath back. So what I'm going to do is I am going to glue down that hello sign. First, I kind of found a level area and then I just start gluing it down right in the corners there. And I'm just adding more glue. And then once it's kind of settled, I'm going to put some more glue right on top at the corners, as you can see there. And I'm going to totally let that dry before I continue on. And now here is our little bow. And I'm just separating our tails just to kind of place it down nice and flat. And then I'm going to take more hot glue, and a lot of it this time. And I'm actually going to glue down that bow to the wood sign. And of course, I'm going to lay out all of my tails, and I'm going to fluff up my bows and my loops and get it the way I want it before that glue completely dries. And there we go. I'm just going to add some finishing touches. I have some pine cones and I have some gourds and pumpkins left over. So I'm just going to add a little bit more embellishments around the sign, kind of incorporating the sign right into that wreath. And I'm adding some more embellishments where the bow is. And now we have a nice full wreath ready for fall and ready for anybody who comes to your front door. So you could say, hello. What do you guys think of the wreath today? I just love how this turned out, and I love the colors of this wreath.
I'm starting off with my wreath board, and I'm using gray poly mesh, this beige poly mesh, and this tricolor poly mesh as well. I'm adding this centerpiece for my flower, and I'm attaching everything using cable ties, along with cutting utensils and a ruler. These are the materials that I'm going to be using today. Starting off with my wreath board. This is a small wreath board, and it is numbered, so you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows of circles. And the outside row today we're not going to be using, but I'm going to be starting in row number 2, and then 3, and then 4. But first, I'm going to attach my cable ties into row number 2. And all you're going to do is you're going to feed it in one end, and then you're going to feed it through the other end, click it together, and that's going to create a little loop. Now, you don't want to close that loop off. You have to feed your mesh through there. So you want to keep that loop nice and open. And then I'm just going to move on to the next 2 close circles or openings. I'm going to feed that cable tie through until I hear it click a couple of times and create that loop. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do those close together holes first, and then I'm going to come in and fill in the rest of the holes. So there's ones in between, and we're going to fill those spacers as well with our cable ties. Now, you don't have to do the way that I did it. I like to do the ones closer together, and then I come around and I just fill in everything else. If you want to do it all at once, that's totally fine by you. Just as long as all of those holes are filled with our cable ties, flip it over just to make sure to check your work, and we have everything filled on our second row. Now I'm going to work on my third and fourth row, filling in all the cable ties. And I'm almost done filling everything in. And I will show you in just a second what it looks like on the other side after I fill it all in. So again, you don't want to close those cable ties. Keep them nice and open. When you see on the other side, all of my holes are filled with cable ties. And now we're ready to cut our mesh so we can make that petal. For this, I'm using polymesh, and I am cutting these at 10 inches in length. So we have a 10-inch wide polymesh, and we're cutting in 10-inch lengths. Now for this particular wreath on the small board, I am using 24 pieces of this solid gray color. And I will also be cutting the multicolored one 16 pieces at 10-inch lengths and 8 pieces of this beige one at 10-inch lengths. So in total, there's 48 pieces at our 10-inch length. And to create our petal, we have one side that's manufactured edged and one is a cut end. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to turn it around to make it a diamond shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, just like you fold a napkin in half to create a little triangle. And with that, I'm going to fold that triangle one more time just to find my center. So I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to push down a little bit just in that one little corner just to show me where my center is. Then I'm going to flip one corner towards the center, overlapping the center just a little bit. And then we'll take the other corner and turn it towards the center, overlapping that a bit. And you can see it makes like a little envelope shape. So you've got your tabs, then you just roll it in to the center point, take your other, roll it in as well. And you're going to create those little curls there with your point. And then at the very end, we're going to squish it all together. And that's going to create our first petal. And what we'll do is we will attach this to our wreath board in between one of our cable ties that we have open. So you're just going to feed it in, leave a little bit of space there, and then you're going to pull it nice and tight to close that off. And once you've got it nice and secured, I'm just going to take my wire cutters and cut the excess off. So there we have it. Our first petal is attached and we're ready to make more. Let's go through it a second time. All you're going to do is you're going to turn your square into a diamond, take that bottom point, match it up to the top point to create a little triangle. Then we're going to fold the triangle in half again to create another triangle, and that's going to find our center point. And all I do with our center point is I just push down a little bit and that creates a fold. And then when I unfold it, I know where my center mark is. I'm going to bring that one corner towards the center with a little bit of an overlap. I'm going to bring the bottom corner up to overlap it again. And then I'm just going to fold down or roll down the edges one more time to create those little curls. And then you just squish right down at the end. And that's going to create our second petal. And all I do is I just attach it to the wreath board using those cable ties that we've already placed. Place it in there with a little bit of an overlap. Then you're going to pull it nice and tight and then cut using your scissors. And I'm just going to repeat the same process over and over again, creating all those wonderful and beautiful petals all around that second row, just filling it up with this petals. I just love this method. And of course, this method comes from Lori from Unique in the Creek. And here we go. Our first row is all done with our gray. Now we're going to move on to that second row, which is all empty. And now we're just going to fill that in with the multicolored mesh. So again, I'm going to use the same procedures over and over again, folding, rolling, and creating those petals using Lori's method from Unique in the Creek to create this beautiful flower petal wreath for fall. And I know the gray is not a typical fall color, but I wanted something a little bit different. And mixed with the solid beige and then of course this checkered pattern, I just love how this came out and I hope you did as well. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I do like, a little bit of the outside of the box. So I wanted to try something new. And with that, I have finished my second row of petals, and now I'm going to work on my final row using the same method created by Lori and attaching those petals right on there. And of course, the beauty part of this is you can take the same method and same procedure and use any color of deco mesh that you want to create your petals. And there we go. We are all done. Now it is time to work on our little centerpiece. And this is just a flower centerpiece that I got offline, or online, I should say, where I'm attaching a pipe cleaner with a little bit of hot glue. And I'm just going to pour some more hot glue on there to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And then once that's all done, I'm just going to put it to the side and let it dry. And now that our glue is dry, I would love it if you're having a good time today and enjoy what I'm doing here. I would love it if you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. We are all done with letting the glue dry. Now it's time to attach it to the back of our wreath board. I'm just going to use two available holes that are adjacent to each other. I'm going to feed that pipe cleaner through, and then I'm just going to give it a couple of really good twists to make sure it's nice and secured in there. Cut off the excess, and what I like to do is just add a little dollop of hot glue to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And once we have it flipped over, we fluff it up a little bit, and we are all done with our fall flower wreath.
I'm using a 14-inch wire wreath frame. This one comes from the Dollar Tree, along with 5 different 2.5-inch wired ribbon. Now these are 2.5 inches. I bought 2 rolls of each color and each pattern. These are from the Dollarama, but if you don't have a Dollarama around you, the Dollar Tree sells the same colors, patterns, etc. So you can use those just as well as the ones I'm using today. Also, I'm using some twine that I have here and some crafting supplies to get everything started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lot of cutting. Yes, cutting is the theme today. What I am doing is I'm starting to cut off 8 inches for each ribbon. So all 5 ribbons are going to be cut at 8-inch lengths. And don't worry, I'm going to give you the grand totals in a minute, but I just wanted to show you each piece I'm cutting 8 inches long for this ribbon wreath that we're using. I have 5 different patterns. I'm cutting 18 pieces at 8 inches for each pattern. So for each ribbon that I'm using, it's going to be 144 inches per ribbon and 720 inches of ribbon in total to make this wreath today. So these are all the cut lengths that I'm going to be using for today's ribbon wreath. They are all cut. I have them all in my nice little neat piles. Now let's add some dovetails. If you've never done a dovetail before, it's just a little finishing touch. All you do is you fold your ribbon in half and you're going to cut on an angle. Now, when you cut on an angle, you can go fairly shallow or fairly deep. The first one I'm showing you is a shallow cut. And you can also do, if you angle your scissors just a little bit more, you can do a more deep cut if you want. I'm going to use the shallow one today. I'm not going to give it such a deep dovetail, but I'm just going to use the shallow one like I show you right here. So I am going to continue on with that dovetailing of all of my pieces of ribbon, just cutting off those ends, just finishing it off on both ends. So I'm dovetailing each end of these to finish it off. And of course, yes, there is a lot of cutting today, but stick around, trust me, with the end result. Trust me, trust me. Now, to put together our bundles, I'm just using some twine, and I just cut mine. I didn't even measure it. It could be maybe 18 inches long. So I am cutting all of those. I'm going to cut 18 of them in total because we're going to create 18 bundles for our wreath. Per section, we're doing 3 bundles. With our 14-inch wire wreath frame, there is 6 sections, so that's 18 bundles. Here we are starting our first bundle. I'm just picking random ribbon. I'm going to use 1 ribbon of each pattern and color for each bundle. All I'm doing is I'm taking the ribbon, I'm going to find the middle, scrunch it up with my finger, and then I'm going to hold it with my left hand, and I'm going to create the bow at the same time. If you're having trouble finding the middle, just fold it in half, push it down, and then you'll create a little crease. Once you open it up again, follow that crease, and boom, you've got your little bow happening. I'm going to add one more ribbon onto this little bundle with that beautiful, it's a wheat sort of burgundy color. I love this color and I love this pattern. Very fall, very autumn. Once we've got our bundle all ready, I'm going to take a piece of string. I'm just going to lay it down. And then face side down, I'm going to lay that little bundle. And I'm going to wrap that twine right around the center. And I'm not going to pull it as soon as I do the first knot. I'm going to flip it over. You'll see in a second. I'm just going to flip it over to make sure I'm centered and everything is kind of bundled in there. So I flip it over. Yep, that looks good to me. Now I'm just going to yank that with a nice pull and do a double knot for that. I'm not going to cut it. We're going to leave that twine on there dangling because that's how we're going to attach it to the wreath. And then if you want, you can just fluff it up now before you attach it to your wreath a little bit. You can put it down on the table, hold the center, and then, of course, you can fan out those beautiful ribbons showing each ribbon. Here it is, our first bundle. And of course, I've had a couple made already. You can see how we're going with this. For putting your bundles together, you can use random patterns, you can use random placement, or you can do the same thing. You can do the pumpkin, then the green, then the yellow, then the burgundy, then the wheat one. I chose to do totally random. So I just picked one. I'm going to use obviously one of each different ribbon per bundle, but I just picked randomly. I wanted a randomness for this. But if you want, you can use the same pattern over and over again. It's totally up to you. Here we are with our other bundle. I'm just fanning it out. I just love these combinations here. I am so happy with my ribbon choice. So I have a lot of bundling to do, and here they are all done. And look how fall this looks. I love it. Here is our wire wreath frame. How we're going to lay it out is we're going to do 3 bundles, creating a V shape per section. So the next section, I'm going to go out, in, and out. And then for the first one, I'm going to do the 2 inner wires, and then I'm going to just attach it using that twine. Let's flip that frame over. And again, I'm using the 2nd inner wire to attach it onto. And then all I do is feed those twine pieces through the holes, tie it in a little knot, and I'm going to double knot this. And once I've got that knot nice and secure, I'm just going to grab my scissors and chop off the excess. And we have our first ribbon placed on our wreath so far. Since it's on the inside, let's call it the inside, I'm going to go to the outside wire. So this is the 2nd outside wire. So basically I'm using 1 wire. I'm going to go up 1, then I'm going to go down 1, then I'm going to go up 1, then I'm going to go down 1. And I hope that makes sense. But here I am attaching that 2nd one on there. I'm almost done again with that double knot. And then I'm going to just chop off the excess with my scissors. And I'm going to add my 3rd and final bundle in this section. So here we're going down, up, and down. So we're going to attach this one on the same wire as we did the first one. So we're making a little V shape within the section, and really you're kind of doing a zigzag all the way around the wreath. You're going up, down, up, down. That's our pattern that we're going to be using today. I just chop off the excess again, and you'll notice they move a lot. And that's totally fine. We've got a little fix coming up. I'm just going to twist them around and position the way I want them, flip it over, make sure everything's spaced properly. And once I do that, I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to add a little dab of glue on each side of that twine, making sure that the glue attaches the twine to the wire. And then it's not going to go anywhere. So we've done down, up, down. Now we're going to go to the next section, and we're going to do this on the 2nd outermost wire. So again, that zigzag pattern, up and down, up and down. I'm going to come back and do the inside wire and attach that bundle on there. And then the final one in this section, I'm going to do on the outer second wire again. And just tie that off in a double knot. Once that's all done and everything's placed, I'm going to add some hot glue there to make sure it doesn't unravel and to make sure it doesn't move on me. So everything's nice and evenly placed, you can see, with our little zigzag pattern, and we have 2 of our sections completely done. And now I'm just going to continue on with my pattern, my zigzag pattern, going in and out with those ribbon bundles and gluing them as I go. Putting the last one on here with the last bit of glue. We're going to let that dry, and then the reveal. I love this part. Boom! Here we have our ribbon wreath with all of our glorious ribbon fall colors. I love this wreath so much. You can leave it just like this, or we can add a little bit of pizzazz to it. So let's maybe Dave it up a bit, if you will. But again, you can totally leave it as is, or we can actually add on just a little bit more to zhuzh up this wreath. How am I going to zhuzh it up? More cutting. Yes, I know. You probably hate me by now with all these cuts. What I'm doing with my leftover ribbon, so I do have those 5 leftover ribbons. I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 12 inches and 2 pieces at 8 inches. And I'm going to do that for each one of my 5 different ribbons. So that's 2 at 12 inches and 2 at 8 inches. Once I have all my cuts made, we're going to make a little teardrop, and I'm going to use my stapler to put these all together. So we just fold over the ribbon, line it up, use your stapler, and then you create that little teardrop. And I'm going to use it for both the 12-inch pieces and the 8-inch pieces. And I'm just going to staple till my heart's content with all of my ribbon. You can see the teardrop shapes right there that I am creating. And of course, if you want to use hot glue, you can totally use hot glue as well. I'm cutting out and starting off with my little centerpiece. And all I'm doing is I'm adding those 12-inch pieces on first. So that's the larger loops. And I'm going to create kind of a bow sort of centerpiece. You'll see in a moment what my brain is thinking. And then the 8-inch pieces I'm going to put right in the center there, just creating a nice little bundle of ribbon. And once I have that kind of all placed out, I'm going to add some pine cones. Why not? These are from a very dear friend of mine, Diane. She gave those to me. So hello, Diane. Thank you. And I'm going to hot glue some string right on the back of our little centerpiece. That's how I'm going to attach it to the wreath. Add a little more hot glue to make sure it's secure. And I'm going to let that totally dry. Here is our little centerpiece, and I'm all excited about putting it in there. I'm going to grab my twine in the center, figure out where the center point is for that centerpiece, flip it over, and then I'm just going to take those ends and I'm going to tie them and then hot glue them to the back. Of course, it's a little messy in the back, so you can always cover that up with some foam core or felt if you have it. But here is our final piece. Our ribbon wreath with our beautiful center, and of course those pine cones, that orange, the pumpkin pattern, the wheat pattern, the green, the yellow. I just love these colors, and I actually really loved and enjoyed these ribbons and working with these ribbons today. They were so much fun, and I had a lot of fun creating our ribbon wreath. Of course, here's a little look again at the ribbon wreath without the center. You can totally choose any ribbon that you want, and you can use this style for any season as well. But here it is again with the centerpiece in there in all of its fall and autumn glory. It is totally ready to hang on my front door.